While global attention remains fixed on destroyed tanks and muddy trenches in eastern Ukraine, a far more decisive war has already been lost by Russia, without a single shot being fired. This war is not fought with missiles or soldiers. It is fought with energy, logistics, and leverage. For decades, Vladimir Putin believed Russia possessed an untouchable weapon against the West: nuclear energy. Through Rosatom, Moscow supplied reactors, fuel, and technical expertise to countries across Europe and Asia. Putin assumed sanctions would never fully bite, because Western lights still depended on Russian uranium. But this confidence rested on a dangerous assumption. Russia controls enrichment and reactors, but not the raw material itself. Nearly 40% of the world's uranium comes from one country, Kazakhstan. And for the first time in centuries, Astana has begun acting independently of Moscow. This single shift is quietly dismantling Russia's last strategic advantage. The war Russia thought it could never lose has already slipped from its hands. Putin's nuclear strategy collapsed because of one overlooked geographic reality. Russia has the machines, the centrifuges, and the infrastructure, but uranium is meaningless without supply. Kazakhstan is the Saudi Arabia of uranium, and for decades it was trapped by Soviet-era logistics. All exports had to pass through Russian territory. That gave Moscow a chokehold over global nuclear fuel markets. If Putin wanted leverage, he simply stopped the trains. That era is over. Kazakhstan has now activated alternative export routes that completely bypass Russia. This is not theory or planning. It is already happening. Uranium shipments are moving west across the Caspian Sea instead of north into Russia. The Kremlin has lost its physical control over the fuel cycle. Without transit power, Russia cannot blackmail customers or dictate terms. The most dangerous part for Moscow is psychological. Once dependence disappears, fear disappears with it. And when fear dies, so does influence. The single most damaging development for Russia is the activation of the Trans-Caspian uranium route. Ships now depart from Kazakhstan's ports, cross the Caspian Sea to Azerbaijan, move through Georgia, and reach Turkey without touching Russian soil. From there, fuel travels directly to Western nuclear facilities. Russia is no longer the gatekeeper. It is a spectator. This route removes Moscow from the supply chain entirely. Transit fees vanish. Political leverage vanishes. Strategic intimidation vanishes. Kazakhstan is also exploring additional corridors, ensuring Russia can never regain control. Why such urgency? Because Astana sees the writing on the wall. Russia is weakened, sanctioned, and unpredictable. Aligning with a sinking power carries fatal risk. By coordinating with Turkey and Western partners, Kazakhstan has stripped Moscow of its final nuclear bargaining chip. Russia still owns massive infrastructure, but infrastructure without resources is just expensive scrap metal. Russia now faces an unthinkable position. A country that once dictated nuclear terms to Europe is becoming dependent on others for raw fuel. Rosatom's global dominance was built on the illusion of supply security. That illusion is shattered. When uranium flows around you instead of through you, power evaporates. Russia's reactors still operate, but the strategic aura is gone. This is not just economic damage, it is reputational collapse. Nuclear customers value reliability above all else. Once trust breaks, contracts follow. Kazakhstan's realignment proves that even former satellites no longer believe Russia offers stability. Moscow is left with Cold War-era facilities and shrinking relevance. In geopolitical terms, Russia has transformed from energy superpower to unreliable middleman. And middlemen are the first to be cut out when systems modernize. The nuclear card Putin thought untouchable has burned his own hand. Physical separation is only half the story. Russia is also being digitally isolated. While Moscow attempts to construct a sovereign internet to control its population, Central Asia is building the opposite, a digital escape route. Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan are laying high-capacity fiber-optic cables beneath the Caspian Sea, directly connecting to Europe. This is not about faster internet. It is about sovereignty. Until now, nearly all Central Asian data passed through Russian servers. Emails, bank transfers, government communications, all visible to Russian intelligence. That surveillance era is ending. Once data bypasses Russian infrastructure, Moscow loses its digital eyes and ears. Intelligence influence collapses. Monitoring collapses. Control collapses. This is a digital divorce, and Russia did not file the papers. When information no longer flows through the Kremlin, authority dissolves faster than borders ever could. The digital separation goes deeper than cables. Central Asian states are systematically removing Russian influence from language, education, and infrastructure. The shift from Cyrillic to Latin alphabets was the mental update. The digital Silk Road is the hardware update. Future generations will grow up consuming content, trading data, and communicating through systems Russia cannot touch. Moscow is being deleted from the network architecture of Eurasia. There is no reset button. Once infrastructure is built, power relationships change permanently. Russia cannot intercept what it cannot access. This is why digital loss may be more fatal than military defeat. Empires collapse when they lose information dominance. Russia is losing it quietly, permanently, and without headlines. Power follows money, and money is fleeing Moscow. For decades, Russia was the financial hub of the post-Soviet world. Oligarchs parked wealth in Moscow real estate. Companies listed on Russian exchanges. That ecosystem is dead. Sanctions turned Russia into a financial risk zone. Assets freeze. Transfers fail. Confidence evaporates. Central Asian elites are moving billions into Istanbul, Astana, and Gulf markets. The Astana International Financial Center is rising precisely as Moscow collapses. Trade increasingly occurs in local currencies, bypassing the ruble entirely. When financial systems abandon a capital, empire follows. Russia is no longer the banker of Eurasia, it is radioactive. And radioactive systems are avoided, not negotiated with. Russia's vulnerability is not limited to borders. It runs through its own core. The Volga-Ural region, Tatarstan and Bashkortostan, is the industrial spine of the Russian war machine. Trucks, engines, refineries, logistics hubs, all concentrated there. And resentment is growing fast. Moscow drains regional budgets to fund the Ukraine war while neglecting local infrastructure. Autonomy has been stripped. Symbols of regional dignity erased. The result is quiet resistance. Reports indicate industrial slowdowns, unexplained fires, and subtle sabotage. Local elites are forming security units under the guise of protection. Analysts believe these are proto-armies loyal to regions, not Moscow. If this industrial belt stalls, Russia's military stalls with it. Tanks do not move without Tatarstan. All roads converge at one strategic corridor, Zengezur. This narrow strip in the South Caucasus determines whether Eurasia connects without Russia or Iran. Azerbaijan is pushing aggressively to open it under Turkic control. Moscow resists desperately. Iran threatens war. Why? Because once Zengezur opens, Russian and Iranian leverage collapses simultaneously. Goods move freely from Central Asia to Europe. No checkpoints. No tolls. No coercion. Russia loses access south. Iran loses access north. This corridor completes the strategic bypass. Control here rewrites the map. The organization of Turkic states is no longer symbolic. A joint civil protection framework has emerged, officially humanitarian, unofficially strategic. Military integration is accelerating. Joint exercises. Intelligence sharing. Weapons standardization. NATO-trained Turkish officers are guiding doctrine. The contrast is brutal. Russia offers outdated tanks and shortages. Turkey offers drones, electronic warfare, and proven combat doctrine. Central Asia is choosing effectiveness over nostalgia. Moscow cannot stop this shift. It cannot even secure its own borders anymore. Behind the scenes, intelligence dominance is changing hands. Turkish intelligence is systematically dismantling Russian networks across Central Asia. Pro-Moscow officials are being sidelined quietly. Communication systems are upgraded. Counterintelligence improves. The FSB is losing situational awareness. When intelligence fails, power collapses suddenly. Moscow no longer knows what decisions are being made in capitals it once controlled. That blindness is lethal. China is not saving Russia. It is replacing it. Beijing invests heavily in the middle corridor, not the Trans-Siberian route. Why? Efficiency. Stability. Sanctions free trade. Russia is a bad bet. Central Asia is the future. Chinese money is building the infrastructure that makes Russia obsolete. Putin calls Xi an ally. In reality, Russia is being economically cannibalized. Dependence has reversed. Step back and observe 2026. Russia is not collapsing through invasion. It is being bypassed. Uranium routes avoid it. Data avoids it. Money avoids it. Industry questions it. Culture moves past it. Putin went to war to stop NATO and secure influence. Instead, he lost the East. The Russian Empire is not being destroyed. It is being ignored. And in geopolitics, irrelevance is worse than defeat. Watch the corridors. Watch the factories. Watch the trains. The real war is already over.